All right, so welcome to another deep dive where we take all the stuff that you send us and hopefully help people understand it better.
Yeah. Make it easy peasy.
Make it so that you can, get all the value without having to do all the work.
Exactly.
Yeah. And today I think we're going to be talking about something that I think a lot of people have trouble with, and that's understanding fast English conversations.
Yeah, especially like when you're watching a movie or, you're talking with native speakers, it can
Yeah.
be really difficult.
It can sound like gibberish sometimes.
Totally.
Yeah. So this week, someone actually sent in a lesson all about a specific method for improving your ability to understand fast English.
Oh,
So that's what we're going to be looking at today. And specifically, it's a 4-step method that's supposed to make a big difference.
awesome. I'm excited to break it down.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it. The first step is called initial exposure.
Okay.
And basically what it means is you're going to listen to a short clip of a real English conversation, not slowed down or anything.
At full speed.
Just natural speed, exactly, and no subtitles.
Oh, wow. So just diving right in.
Yeah, just kind of a cold plunge. And the example they use in this lesson is a guy named David who's talking about meeting this woman named Chantel who's from Montreal.
Oh, interesting.
And so you listen to it once, and at this point, you're probably not going to understand that much, and that's totally fine.
Yeah. I can imagine it would be pretty overwhelming at first.
Yeah, I can feel like everyone's just mumbling a mile a minute.
Totally.
But the point here isn't to understand everything. It's just to kind of get a feel for the speed of the rhythm of the conversation.
Kind of getting your ears used to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I can see how that would be helpful, but wouldn't it be discouraging to not understand anything at all?
Well, that's why it's so important to remember that this is just the first step.
Right.
It's like taking your temperature, you need to see where you're at before you can start working on getting better.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, so don't get discouraged if you feel lost at this stage. It's all part of the process.
Okay, that makes sense.
So once you've kind of dipped your toes in the water with that initial exposure, we move on to step 2, which is slowing down.
Okay, so now we get to actually understand what they're saying.
Right. So basically you listen to the same conversation again, but this time it's been slowed down significantly.
Got it.
And the idea here is that by slowing things down, you give your brain more time to process the sounds and the words.
That makes sense because when you're first learning a language, everything sounds like it's running together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people find that when they hear the conversation at a slower pace, they actually understand way more than they thought they did.
It's like those moments when you finally figure out the lyrics to a song you've been listening to for years.
Exactly. And that can be really motivating because it shows you that you're actually capable of understanding more than you realize.
Yeah, it gives you a confidence boost.
Exactly. So step 2 is all about building that foundation.
Okay, so we've listened at full speed. We've listened, slowed down. What's next?
All right. So step 3 is called active listening and transcription.
Oh, so we're getting our pens and paper out.
Yeah. So this time you're going to listen to the fast version again, but now you're going to try to write down every single word you hear.
Wow, that sounds challenging.
It can be, but it's also really effective because it forces you to pay super close attention to the sounds and the details.
I can see how that would really train your ear.
Exactly. And the lesson emphasizes that this step isn't just about listening, it's also about improving your own speaking skills.
Interesting. How does that work?
Well, when you're trying to write down what you hear, you're also thinking about how those words are pronounced and how they're put together.
So it's like active practice, even though you're not the one speaking.
Exactly. And plus, when you compare your transcription to the actual transcript later, you can see where you made mistakes, and that can help you improve your pronunciation and your grammar.
It's like getting personalized feedback on your listening skills.
Exactly. So it's a really valuable exercise for a lot of reasons.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these steps build on each other.
Yeah, they're all connected and they all work together to help you understand fast English.
So what's the final step?
The final step is comparison and analysis. So basically, you take your transcription or just your general understanding from the previous steps, and you compare it to the actual transcript of the conversation.
Okay, so we finally get to see the answers.
Exactly. And this is where a lot of those aha moments happen.
Yeah, because you can see exactly what you got right and what you missed.
Right. And you can see why you missed certain things. Maybe it was a vocabulary issue, or maybe you just didn't hear the word correctly.
And that helps you focus on those specific areas where you need to improve.
Exactly. And a lot of times you'll be surprised by how much you actually understood, even if it didn't feel like it at the time.
Yeah, that's always a nice feeling.
Yeah, it's really encouraging because it shows you that you're making progress.
So this 4-step method is all about training your ear and your brain to process fast English.
Right. And it's not just about passively listening. It's about actively engaging with the language.
Yeah, and it seems like it would be helpful for all levels of learners.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Because even if you're already pretty good at understanding English, there's always room for improvement.
Absolutely.
And the lesson also points out that vocabulary is super important for understanding spoken English.
Yeah, even if you have great listening skills, if you don't know the words, you're not going to understand what's being said.
Exactly. And to illustrate this, they highlight 3 specific phrases for the David and Chantel conversation.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first one is to not matter.
All right, so that's a pretty common phrase.
Yeah, and it's often pronounced more like to not matter, especially in American English.
Yeah, the tech can sound like a word when you're speaking quickly.
Right, and in the conversation, David says that it didn't matter that he didn't speak French and Chantel didn't speak English.
So in this case, to not matter means that it wasn't important or it didn't prevent them from communicating.
Exactly, and the lesson gives another example like, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes, just keep practicing.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's all about the meaning behind the phrase.
So what's the next phrase?
The next one is to come down. And in the conversation, David says that Chantel and her friend had come down from Montreal to Florida.
Okay, so this is a phrasal verb,
Right, and in this case, it means to travel south.
which makes sense because Montreal is north of Florida.
Exactly, and the lesson gives another example, like, my cousins are coming down from New York for the holidays.
So again, it's about direction.
Yeah, and it implies that the speaker is located south of New York.
Got it.
And the last phrase is to end up.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and this one means to arrive at a situation or a result that you didn't expect.
So there's a sense of surprise.
Right, and in the conversation, David says that Chantel ended up living with him for 7 months.
Which is definitely not something he planned on when they first met.
Exactly, and the lesson gives another example, like we got lost on our way to the park and ended up finding a cute little cafe.
So in both cases, there's a twist. You know, something unexpected happens.
Exactly, and that's the key to understanding this phrase.
So we've covered the 4-step method, and we've looked at some key phrases from the example conversation.
Right, so just to recap really quickly, the 4 steps are initial exposure, slowing down, active listening, and transcription and comparison and analysis.
And remember, vocabulary is also crucial.
Absolutely, you can't understand what you don't know.
Exactly.
So now the lesson also mentions this thing called the 150-day listening challenge.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's basically a program where you spend 15 minutes every day for 150 days listening to short, real English conversations.
This is like a daily dose of listening practice.
Exactly, and they say that it features over 50 different native speakers.
So you get exposed to lots of different accents and speaking styles.
Exactly, which is really important for developing your listening skills.
Yeah, because in the real world, you're not always going to be talking to people who speak perfectly clearly and with a standard accent.
Right, you need to be able to understand a variety of people.
So what are the supposed benefits of this challenge?
Well, they claim that after 150 days, you'll be able to understand English media and conversations much more easily.
That's a pretty big claim.
It is,
Yeah.
but they also mentioned that there was a limited time offer going on.
Oh, so it was like a special deal.
Yeah, it was a discounted price, and you got lifetime access.
Not bad.
And it was starting on Friday, March 21st.
So hopefully some of our listeners were able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, if it sounded interesting to them.
And even if they missed the offer, it's still a good idea to incorporate regular listening practice into their routine.
Definitely consistency is key.
Absolutely.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to mention that there's a free PDF worksheet that you can download.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it has all the tips for the 4-step method, a worksheet to help you practice, and the full transcript of the David and Chantel conversation.
So everything you need to get started.
Exactly. And to get it, all you have to do is click the link in the show notes and enter your name and email address.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that when you sign up, you'll also get weekly free PDF worksheets with even more tips and exercises.
So it's like a continuous resource for improving your English.
Exactly. So definitely check that out.
Sounds like a great resource.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground today, but the main takeaway is that understanding fast English doesn't have to be impossible.
Right. With the right methods and consistent effort, anyone can improve their listening skills.
Exactly. And the 4-step method is a great place to start.
Definitely.
So as a final thought, I want you to think back to a time when you really struggled to understand a fast English conversation. Maybe you were watching a movie or listening to a podcast or talking to a native speaker.
We've all been there.
Yeah. And I want you to think about how using these techniques might have changed that experience for you. Would you have been able to understand more? Would you have felt more confident?
And what other communication challenges could we apply this kind of step-by-step approach to?
That's a great question.
Because it seems like this framework could be useful in all sorts of situations where we need to break down complex information.
Absolutely. And that's really what we're all about here on the deep dive.
Taking those deep dives and helping people make sense of the world.
Exactly.
Strategies that you can use right away to, better understand those fast-paced English conversations that we all encounter.
And the stuff we're looking at today, it comes from a resource that's all about this, understanding fast English. It's like their bread and butter.
Really interesting stuff.
So the first step in this method is called initial exposure. And basically the idea is you're going to listen to a short clip of a real English conversation at natural speed.
Yeah.
But here's the catch. No visual aids allowed.
So no subtitles, no transcripts, nothing like that.
Nope. Just you and the audio.
Yeah.
We want you to listen to this clip and really resist the urge to try and understand every single word. The goal is to just get a feel for the speed, the intonation, how native speakers naturally talk.
That's right. The intonation, like the rise and fall of their voice, can tell you so much about what they're trying to say, like whether they're asking a question or emphasizing a point or even, what emotions they're feeling.
Exactly. So to give you an example of this initial exposure, we're going to play a short audio clip of a conversation between two people talking about a surprising encounter they had.
Okay, so should the listener close their eyes while they're listening, or?
Yeah, that might help them focus on the sounds. So just close your eyes, relax, and listen to the short exchange.
Okay.
Pause. All right, that was the initial exposure. So what did you think? Did you catch any words or phrases? How did the speed feel?
Probably pretty fast, I imagine.
Yeah. It's normal to feel like it went by really quickly at this stage.
Yeah, this first listen is really just to kind of get your ears used to the speed of natural English. We're going to break it down more in the next steps.
Okay, so step 2 is all about slowing things down a bit.
Exactly. Now, in this step, you're going to listen to the same conversation again, but this time it's been slowed down and re-recorded.
And it's important to note that this isn't just the original audio played at half speed or something like that.
Yeah.
This is a completely re-recorded version where the speakers are speaking more slowly and clearly on purpose.
Yeah, so you can really hear each individual word and phrase.
Exactly. So think of it like this.
Yeah.
It's the same information, but delivered at a more manageable pace. So your brain has more time to process what it's hearing.
I bet the listener will understand a lot more this time around.
Totally. So let's listen to this slowed down version now. Pay attention to how much more you can understand at this slower pace.
Sounds good.
Pause. So how was that? Could you understand more of the conversation this time?
Oh yeah, I'm sure it was much easier to follow.
Right? So that shows you how much of a difference the speed of speech can make.
It really does. But we're not stopping there. We need to make sure the listener can understand the original speed too, right?
Exactly. That's where step 3 comes in. This is where things get a little more active.
Active listening.
Yes. We want you to listen to the original fast-paced clip again, and this time try to write down every word you can understand.
I love this. This is a great exercise for a few reasons. It makes you really focus your attention, and it helps you see which words and sounds you already know and which ones you need to work on.
Exactly. So grab pen and paper or open up a note-taking app on your phone. We're going to play that fast clip again. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Just try your best to write down what you can.
And in a real setting, you could pause and rewind the audio as much as you need to get more of it down.
Right. But for now, just do your best to keep up with the natural speed. So here we go.
Take it away.
Pause. Wow, that was fast. So how much were you able to write down?
Hopefully a bit more than the first listen through.
I hope so. But even if you didn't get it all, don't worry. That's totally normal. We're going to give you the answers in the next step.
This is where it all comes together.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
Step 4 is all about verification and analysis. What we're going to do now is show you the full transcript of the conversation.
Right.
And at the same time, we're going to play the fast audio clip one last time. So you can follow along, check your work, and see all the words spelled out correctly.
This is where you can really see what you got right, what you missed, and discover any new words or phrases that you might not have heard before.
So here's the transcript. And we're going to start playing the audio again. Pay close attention to any differences between what you heard before and what the actual words are.
This is how you learn and improve your listening skills.
Pause. This is where the listener would ideally see the transcript and hear the audio simultaneously. Okay. So that was the final step. You've now gone through all 4 steps of this method. You should have a much better understanding of that short conversation now.
I hope so.
To test that understanding, let's do a quick quiz.
All right, let's see what you've learned.
Question 1. Where is Chantel from?
Pause. The answer is Montreal.
Question 2. Where did David first see Chantel?
Pause. That's right. On the beach.
Question 3. Did David and Chantel speak the same language? Yes or no?
Pause. The answer is no. David spoke English and Chantel spoke French.
Isn't that interesting? They still managed to communicate and connect even though they didn't speak the same language?
Yeah, it really shows you that communication is about more than just words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. How long did Chantel live with David?
7 months.
7 months. Can you believe that? That's a pretty long time considering they met on the beach and didn't even speak the same language.
Life is full of surprises.
It really is. Okay, so we've talked about the overall meaning of the conversation. Now let's zoom in on some specific phrases from the conversation that might be helpful for you to know.
Good idea.
The first phrase is to not matter. In the conversation, they said, that didn't matter. What do you think that means?
Well, it basically means that something wasn't important. It didn't make a difference. Like, if
Yeah.
you say, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake, just keep practicing.
Exactly. So it's a way of saying something is insignificant.
Precisely.
The next phrase is a phrasal verb, to come down. They said they came down from Montreal. What does to come down mean in this context?
So in this case, to come down means to travel from a place that's further north to a place that's further south. It's all about the direction of travel. Like you might say, my cousins are coming down from New York for the holidays.
Right. So it's a way of talking about traveling south.
Exactly.
And the last phrase is another phrasal verb, to end up. They said, she ended up living with me for 7 months. What does to end up mean here?
To end up means that something happened that wasn't really planned or expected. Like in the conversation, it was kind of a surprise that Chantel ended up living with David for 7 months.
Yeah, it wasn't part of the original plan.
Exactly. So it often implies a sense of surprise or unexpectedness.
So there you have it. By following those 4 steps, you've not only practiced your listening skills, but you've also learned some useful phrases along the way.
And hopefully you've realized that understanding fast English is a skill that you can develop with practice.
Absolutely. And if you're serious about improving your listening skills, we have something really special to tell you about. It's called the 150-Day Listening Challenge.
It's an amazing program designed to take your English listening skills to the next level. Over 150 days, you'll listen to a variety of real English conversations with native speakers from all over the world.
You'll hear different accents, different speaking styles, all kinds of things. It's a really immersive and effective way to improve your comprehension.
And normally this challenge costs $500, but we have a special offer for our listeners.
For a limited time, you can get lifetime access to the 150-Day Listening Challenge for just $199. That's a huge discount. And you'll have access to all the materials forever.
But this offer is only available until March 21st, so don't miss out. You can find the link to enroll in the description below. Don't wait. Sign up today.
And for everyone who's listening today, we have a free gift for you.
Oh, that's nice.
It's a PDF worksheet that includes all the tips and tricks from this 4-step listening method, plus a practice worksheet and a full transcript of the conversation we listened to today.
So you can review everything we talked about today.
To get your free worksheet, just click the link in the description below and enter your name and email address.
That easy.
And when you sign up for the worksheet, you'll also be added to our email list, where you'll receive free weekly worksheets delivered straight to your inbox.
So you can keep practicing and improving your English.
So whether you decide to join the 150-Day Challenge or just use the 4-step method and our free worksheet, remember that the key to success is consistent practice.
Yeah, every time you listen to English, every time you try to understand something new, you're getting better.
And think about it. How often does miscommunication happen? Not just because we don't understand the words, but because of the speed or the way someone is speaking. By training your ears to understand fast English, you're developing a vital communication skill that can help you in so many different situations.
Absolutely.
So keep practicing, keep learning, and you'll be amazed at how much progress you can make.
Okay. Have you ever had this experience? You're listening to someone talk in English, right? Maybe at like a pretty normal speed, and you can understand what they're saying, but then as soon as you need to like jump in and answer something quickly, it's like your brain completely freezes.
Yeah.
It's like you're still trying to think of what to say, but the conversation has already moved on, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people struggle with that. You know, you might be really good at understanding English, but then when you have to like quickly translate and think of an answer in your head,
Yeah.
that's the hard part, right?
Exactly. And that's actually what we're going to be talking about today in this deep dive. We're going to be taking some really cool ideas from this podcast I was listening to called Mastering Fast English Conversations.
Okay.
And we're going to be breaking down the super useful 3-step strategy specifically for speaking.
Nice.
And basically, this strategy is all about helping you to not just understand English, but to think faster in English so you can actually respond confidently, like without that hesitation.
I love that. Because a lot of people, they get to that point where they can understand, but they just can't respond quickly enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think for people who maybe have listened to the first couple parts of this podcast, Mastering Fast English Conversations, they actually do this 4-step listening method,
Right.
which is great. But today we're going to be focusing on the speaking part
Awesome.
and like giving you some actual techniques you can use.
Yes. Love it.
Now, what's so awesome about this strategy is that it's so practical. It's not about like memorizing a ton of vocabulary or learning all these crazy grammar rules.
Right.
It's really just like a simple and effective way to practice that you can easily fit into like your normal routine.
Yeah. And you can see results quickly without feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly. And we know you guys are all busy and you want something that's like quick and effective, right?
Totally. And to help you guys practice these steps that we're going to be talking about today, there's actually this awesome PDF worksheet that goes along with it. It explains everything really clearly, and there's like a bunch of extra exercises you can do.
Awesome.
And you can find it, I think you can get it like wherever you get like all the extra stuff for this show, usually just by signing up or something.
Cool. Okay, so let's jump into this 3-step strategy.
Let's do it.
Step number 1 is something called shadowing.
Shadowing.
Okay.
Now, I know that might sound kind of strange at first,
Yeah.
but trust me, there's something really powerful about this technique.
For sure. So basically, shadowing is like a type of active listening where you're basically repeating what you hear right after the speaker says it. So imagine like your voice is like an echo or a shadow that's closely following the original audio.
Oh, I like that. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And what's so cool about shadowing is that it works on a lot of different levels. So, yeah, of course, it's amazing for like improving your pronunciation and getting comfortable with making English sounds.
Yeah. But it also helps you kind of absorb the natural rhythm and like the intonation of English, which
Yeah.
is so important if you want to sound more fluent.
Yeah, exactly. And what I think is really interesting about shadowing is that because you're only focused on like copying what you hear, you don't have to like worry about coming up with your own words.
Right.
And that actually like lets your brain kind of focus on those smaller details of pronunciation and rhythm
Mm-hmm.
without you even realizing it. Almost like your mouth and your ears are learning together.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try like a quick little shadowing exercise right now.
Okay.
Imagine you hear someone say, "The cat sat on the mat and purred contentedly." So try to repeat that after me. Ready? The cat sat on the mat and purred contentedly.
Okay.
So after you hear me say it, just repeat it out loud.
Got it.
Pause for response. Awesome.
Yeah. Even just doing that for a few seconds, you can start to feel that connection between like what you hear and what you say. And the more you practice shadowing with different kinds of English audio,
Yeah.
like the better you'll get at making those sounds naturally and speaking more fluently without even thinking about it.
That makes sense. Okay, so let's move on to step 2. This one is called chunking.
Chunking.
And this technique is all about taking these longer sentences and splitting them up into smaller pieces that are easier to manage and that sound more natural.
Right. So instead of looking at a long sentence and feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah,
just break it down into smaller chunks that you can focus on one at a time.
exactly. And the idea here is that native English speakers, we don't usually think about each individual word when we're talking.
Yeah.
We kind of think in these like groups of words that often go together.
Right. It's like those Lego blocks.
Exactly.
Certain ones just naturally fit together.
Yeah.
And we use those combinations all the time.
And learning to recognize and use these chunks, what some people call like lexical chunks or collocations,
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference in how fluent you sound and how natural you sound because you're starting to speak more like a native speaker would instead of like translating word for word from your first language.
Yeah.
So let's try a quick chunking exercise.
Okay.
Imagine the sentence is, "Even though the traffic was terrible this morning, I still managed to arrive at the office on time."
Oh, okay. That's a long one.
Yeah, it is, but we're going to break it down. So first, repeat after me. Even though the traffic was terrible this morning. Pause for response. Good. And now the second part. I still managed to arrive at the office on time. Pause for response. Perfect. See how breaking it down like that makes it feel way less overwhelming?
Yeah, for sure.
Let's try one more. Okay.
Okay.
If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me by email.
Sure.
So repeat after me. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Pause for response. And the second part, to me by email. Pause for response. Awesome.
I like it.
And by practicing speaking in these like natural chunks, you'll find that your speech becomes so much more fluent and it'll have that natural rhythm to it.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you're training your mouth and your brain to work together in these familiar patterns.
Okay, so now let's move on to step number 3, the final step in this speaking strategy, and it's called response drills.
Response drills.
And this one is specifically designed to help you practice answering common questions that come up in conversation like quickly and without that like pause or hesitation.
Yes, this is all about speed, training your brain to answer automatically, like without having to think too hard.
Exactly. And, it's kind of like when a musician practices their scales over and over again until it becomes like second nature.
Yes, totally.
It's building that same kind of automaticity with speaking.
Yeah, and it's so important to remember that when you're doing these response drills, you don't have to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's actually part of the process. The goal is to get faster and sound more natural,
Yeah.
not to be grammatically perfect every single time.
Exactly.
Because in a real conversation, it's much better to make a small grammar mistake than to like freeze up and not say anything at all.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try a couple of these common questions.
Okay.
First, imagine someone asks you, what's a hobby you enjoy doing in your free time?
Okay.
Take a second to think of your answer and then say it out loud.
Cool. Pause for a response.
Great. Now, here's another one. What's the weather usually like where you live?
All right. Pause for a response.
Nice. And as you practice answering these common questions quickly, you'll notice that you start hesitating less in real conversations, and speaking will just feel so much smoother and more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're training your brain to respond more naturally.
Okay, so let's do a super quick recap of the 3-step speaking strategy we talked about today. First, we have shadowing, which is like a super useful technique for improving your pronunciation and fluency by repeating what you hear right after the speaker.
Right.
Then we have chunking, which is where you learn to break down these longer sentences into those smaller natural phrases that native speakers use.
Yeah,
And that helps you sound more fluent and more natural when you speak.
for sure.
And then finally, we have response drills, which is basically training your brain to answer those common questions really quickly and confidently, which will help you to not hesitate as much in conversations.
Exactly. And like we said before, the real key to seeing like big improvements is to practice consistently.
Yeah.
Even if you can only dedicate like a few minutes each day to these techniques, it'll make a huge difference in your spoken English over time. And don't forget about that PDF worksheet. It's full of extra exercises that can really help you with all 3 steps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for anyone who's like really serious about taking their English conversation skills to like that next level, there actually was this program called the 150-Day Speaking Challenge.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Have you?
Yeah, it sounded pretty intense.
It did. It sounded like a very thorough program.
Yeah.
And it had like daily training based on real conversations. And then it had all these specific practice activities to help you improve your skills. And it even had personalized feedback from experienced native English teachers.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was usually priced at $500, but there was this limited time offer where you could get it for $199, which also included lifetime access to all the materials.
That's a great deal.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's still available.
Well, the deadline for that offer was March 21st.
Oh, okay.
So
it's probably not.
Yeah, probably not. But it was a great opportunity while it lasted.
Definitely.
So yeah, but even though that specific challenge isn't available anymore at that price,
Right.
the things we've talked about today, like shadowing, chunking, and response drills, those are all things you can start doing right now.
Exactly. And don't forget about that free worksheet to get some extra practice.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us for this deep dive into speaking strategies for faster and more confident English conversations.
Yeah, we really hope that you guys will start experimenting with these 3 steps today. And even just setting aside a few minutes each day to practice can make a huge difference in your fluency and your confidence.
And remember, learning a language is a journey.
Yeah.
It takes time. You just got to keep practicing and try out different strategies, and you'll see amazing results.
Yeah. And luckily, there's a lot of great advice out there. We've gone through tons of material on this topic.
Right. So we're going to break it all down in this deep dive, sort of distill it into the most essential elements.
Exactly. What are the keys to unlocking that natural sound? And based on everything we've looked at, it seems there are 3 main areas to really focus on.
Okay. I'm all ears. Lay it on me. We're these magic 3.
First up is intonation. You've got to pay attention to the music of your speech.
Intonation.
Ah,
I think a lot of people kind of get what that means, like, not speaking in a monotone.
yeah.
But maybe we can break it down a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Intonation is all about the rise and fall of your voice as you speak. It's about how your pitch changes as you utter a sentence, and this is so important in English.
It's way more than just, pronouncing the words correctly.
Way more. See, in English, the way you say something can completely change the meaning. Think about a simple sentence like, I didn't know you were coming.
I didn't know you were coming. Okay, yeah, I say that all the time.
No, if you say it in a completely flat tone, it might sound a bit, well, robotic
Mhm.
or like you don't really care. But try saying it with a slight emphasis, a lift in your voice on no and coming.
I didn't know you were coming.
Right, and suddenly it's like, oh, wow, what a surprise. It sounds way more natural, more expressive.
I can hear that. It does make a difference.
And it's not just with statements. Think about questions like, are you serious?
Hmm.
If you say it flat, it's almost like you're not really asking, but put a little lift at the end. Are you serious? And now it's a genuine question.
I see. So paying attention to these little ups and downs in our voice can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And the first step is just to become aware of it. Listen to how native speakers talk. Notice how their voices move. And then start practicing it yourself.
Okay, so that's intonation. What's the next key to sounding more natural?
The next key is linking. Specifically, linking sounds together in a phrase.
Linking.
Right. You see, when we speak naturally, we don't pronounce each word separately. The sounds kind of blend together, they link up.
So that's why native speakers sometimes sound like they're talking so fast.
Exactly. It's not always about speed, but about this smooth flow of sounds. Like, take the phrase, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
Now, most people wouldn't say it like that in casual conversation. They'd say something more like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah, for sure.
You see how the sounds link up? The T at the end of what kind of blends with the R and becomes more like a D, and the U gets shortened to ya.
What are you doing? It's almost like a whole new word.
In a way, it is. It's how the language naturally evolves in spoken form. Another example is, I don't know. But we often hear it as, I don't know, right?
I don't know.
The don't and the no kind of merge together. So becoming aware of this linking is really important.
Okay, so we should be listening for these linked sounds and trying to use them ourselves.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to experiment. At first, it might feel a little bit awkward, but with practice, it'll start to feel more natural.
Practice makes perfect, as they say.
It really does. All right, ready for the third key.
Hit me with it.
This one is all about using natural expressions.
Okay, so what makes an expression natural?
Well, it's about using phrases that native speakers use all the time in everyday conversations. These phrases might not always make sense if you just look at the individual words.
Oh yeah, like idioms.
Exactly. Idioms are a great example of natural expressions. They add color to your language and make you sound more fluent.
Can you give us some examples of these natural expressions?
Absolutely. One that's super common and useful is, it's up to you.
It's up to you. Yeah, I use that one all the time.
It basically means you decide. It's a simple way to give someone the choice. Another good one is, no worries.
No worries.
You can use it instead of it's okay or don't worry about it. It's very casual and friendly.
Right, so it's not just about grammar and vocabulary. It's about using these natural phrases that real people use.
Right on. It's about capturing the essence of everyday spoken English.
So how do we get better at using these expressions?
Well, the best way is to, immerse yourself in the language. Listen to native speakers, watch movies, TV shows, whatever you enjoy.
And pay attention to how they speak.
Exactly. Jot down any phrases that sound interesting or useful, and then try using them yourself. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn.
So we've got these three key areas: intonation, linking, and natural expressions. These are the tools we need to sound more like native speakers.
That's right. They all work together to create that natural, effortless flow.
So what's the most important takeaway for our listeners today?
Well, it's to start paying attention to these details in your own speech. Listen to yourself. Are you using intonation effectively? Are you linking sounds together? Are you using those natural expressions?
And don't be afraid to practice, practice, practice.
Couldn't have said it better myself. The more you practice, the more natural it'll become, and you'll find yourself sounding more and more like a native speaker.
And I think there's something really cool about this. It's not just about sounding good, it's about understanding the music and the rhythm of the language.
Totally. It's about connecting with the language on a deeper level. And when you do that, you can really unlock a whole new world of communication.
It's like learning to dance with the language.
Exactly. And when you can dance with the language, well, you can truly express yourself in a way that's authentic and engaging. And who knows, you might even surprise yourself with how much you enjoy it.
Great you can use to really sound more native
Exactly.
as you're speaking English.
So think of this like a cheat sheet.
Yeah, I like that. A cheat sheet.
Yeah, to help you level up your speaking.
Yeah.
Sound more natural, more fluent, more confident, basically like a native speaker.
Yeah. And the 3 things that we've identified that we're going to talk about today are contractions, stress patterns, and fillers.
Yes.
These little tiny words that can make a big difference.
Different.
Huge, yeah. And we have a free PDF worksheet for you guys.
Of course, as always.
As always, with all these examples and with even more examples.
Yes. And practice exercises.
So make sure to download it. The link is in the description. Just pop in your email address and we'll send it straight to you.
All right, so let's jump straight into contractions.
Yeah, contractions. Now, you probably already know some of the basics like don't for do not,
Right.
but using them consistently can really elevate your fluency.
Exactly.
So let's talk about how and why native speakers use them so much.
Well, contractions are basically just shortened forms of words and phrases
Okay.
that we use all the time in spoken English.
Okay.
They just make your speech sound more fluid, more natural.
Like, for example, it's instead of it is.
Exactly.
Or we've instead of we have.
Right. And we do this kind of instinctively,
Yeah.
as native speakers.
Yeah, we don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just how we speak.
All right, so let's try a quick practice example.
Okay, sounds good.
Imagine you're saying, I am going to the store.
Right.
Well, that's grammatically correct.
Yeah.
It can sound a little formal.
It sounds very formal. Yeah. For everyday speech.
So what's a more natural way to say that?
Yeah, you would say, I'm going to the store.
Exactly. I'm going to the store.
Now you try it.
Going to the store.
Correct.
Sounds so much more natural.
So much more natural, so much more fluid.
Yeah.
Okay, let's try another one.
Okay.
He will be there soon.
Ah, yeah, good one.
How would we shorten that?
So we would naturally say he'll be there soon.
Okay, so listen carefully and then try saying it.
He'll be there soon.
Perfect.
Right. Is it good?
I'm feeling good. I think they're feeling good too.
I think so, yeah.
So, moving on,
Okay.
let's talk about stress patterns.
Ooh, this is a good one.
This is a good one. This is a good one. This is where things get really interesting
Yeah.
because it can really change the meaning of what you're saying depending on where you put the stress in a sentence.
Yeah. Stress patterns are all about emphasizing certain words within a sentence
Okay.
to highlight their importance.
It's not just about pronouncing each word correctly. It's about which words you choose to emphasize
Got it.
to convey the meaning that you want.
All right, so let's use a really clear example here.
Okay.
I didn't say she took my pen.
Right.
Now listen to how the meaning shifts depending on which word we stress.
Okay, let's do it.
So first, if you stress,
I
didn't say she took my pen.
It implies that someone else said it.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, the emphasis is on who made the accusation.
Okay, so now what if we stress didn't?
I didn't say she took my pen.
That's a direct denial.
Yeah, you're emphasizing the fact that you did not make that statement.
Right. You're denying it.
Completely denying it.
Okay, now what if we stress took?
So, I didn't say she took my pen.
So now you're suggesting that maybe she did something else with the pen.
Right, you're not denying that something happened with the pen.
Yeah.
You're just saying you didn't specifically use the word took.
Right, you're being very specific with the word took.
Yeah, maybe she borrowed it.
Yeah.
Maybe she found it,
Yeah.
but you didn't say she took it.
So just a subtle shift in the emphasis can completely change the meaning of what you're saying.
It's so powerful.
It's powerful, so important.
And I think it's something that a lot of learners maybe don't pay so much attention to.
Right.
But it's really crucial for sounding natural
Yeah, it's really crucial, yeah.
and being understood.
Mm-hmm. So I actually had a student who would always stress the wrong syllable in the word comfortable.
Oh, wow.
And so it kind of changed,
Change the whole meaning.
the meaning, but it also just sounded a little bit awkward.
Yeah, that's a good example.
So
It's subtle, but it's important.
it's subtle, but it's really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's practice.
Okay, let's practice.
I'm going to say the sentence, I didn't say she took my pen,
Okay.
and I want you to repeat it,
Right.
trying to capture that natural rise and fall of the emphasis.
I'm ready.
Okay. I didn't say she took my pen.
I didn't say she took my pen. And now try saying it again, maybe putting the emphasis on a different word each time.
Okay, I didn't say she took my pen. I didn't say she took my pen.
Yeah.
I didn't say she took my pen.
Perfect, you're getting it.
Yeah, it's fun, right?
It is fun, yeah.
Yeah,
It's subtle, but it's so important.
it is.
Okay, let's move on to our third and final technique for today.
Yeah.
Fillers.
Ah, fillers.
Everyone's favorite.
I love fillers.
I love fillers, yeah.
Now, these might seem like little throwaway words, but they play a huge role in natural conversation.
Absolutely.
They're essential. They are essential.
Yeah.
All right, so what are fillers?
Well, fillers are those little words and sounds that we use to kind of, connect our thoughts
Yeah.
and give ourselves a little bit of time to think
Yeah, they give us time to think. Yeah.
while we're speaking. And they make us sound more natural,
Yeah.
less robotic.
Less robotic. Yeah.
Yeah. And they could be things like, right.
And so on.
And we use these all the time
All the time.
without even thinking about it.
Yeah, they're a natural part of spoken language.
So how do these fillers actually help us?
Okay, so imagine someone asks you a question, and you need a moment to think
Right.
before you respond.
Mhm.
Instead of just silence,
Awkward silence.
awkward silence, you can use a filler like, or, well,
Yeah. To buy yourself some time.
exactly. It just smooths out the conversation.
Makes it less abrupt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And less confrontational.
Less confrontational, right?
Yeah, you're not just like
Staring at
staring at them blankly.
blankly, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's take the sentence like, I need more time to think about it.
Okay, simple sentence.
Simple sentence.
Yeah.
How can we make that sound more natural using fillers?
Okay, so you could say something like, I need like a little more time to think about it.
Yeah. Or, well, I need to think about it a little bit more.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they
make a huge difference.
do. They soften it.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds much more natural.
Yeah.
Okay, so now listen carefully and repeat after me.
Okay.
I need like a little more time to think about it.
I need like a little more time to think about it.
Perfect.
It does sound more natural, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so we've covered 3 techniques today
We have.
for sounding more natural when you speak English.
Yeah. Contractions.
Using those shortened forms.
Shortened forms, yes.
Mhm.
Stress patterns.
Emphasizing the right words.
Emphasizing the right words.
To get your meaning across.
Get your meaning across. And fillers.
Those little sounds and words that connect our thoughts.
Yeah, they're so important.
So important.
And, we've talked about this before, but even these small things
Mm-hmm.
can make a really big difference
Absolutely. It's all about the details.
in how natural you sound.
Yeah. One of the things that this dialogue highlights is that spoken English relies a lot on blending words together.
Oh, interesting.
It's called connected speech.
Okay.
And it's a big difference between written English
Yeah,
and spoken English.
I see.
So, for example,
Yeah.
the question, what do you want to do?
Okay.
If you were to write that down,
Right.
it's quite a few words.
Yeah.
But when we say it out loud,
Uh-huh.
it often comes out as, what do you want to do?
Right. What do you want to do?
Ex-
Yeah, you're right. It's like the separate
They
word.
kind of melt together.
Yeah, they totally melt.
Yeah.
I never thought of it like that, but it's true.
Because it's much more efficient to speak that way.
Right. Less effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't have to pronounce every single sound distinctly.
I got it.
So another example is, did you eat?
Did you eat?
Yeah, try saying that out loud.
Did you eat?
It probably didn't sound like 3 really sharp words.
No.
It probably sounded more like, did you eat?
Oh, yeah. Did you eat?
Try that with me. Did you eat?
Did you eat?
See?
It's way smoother.
It just rolls off the tongue.
Totally.
So yeah, connected speech is one of those little things that can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. And the dialogue also mentions using reductions,
Yeah.
which is kind of related, I guess.
It's all about efficiency, really.
Okay.
Like we were saying.
Uh-huh.
Spoken language is all about getting your meaning across
Right.
as quickly and easily as possible.
Gotcha.
So we shorten common phrases. Well, going to becomes gonna. Oh, yeah. And want to becomes wanna.
Right. Everyone says that.
Yeah, everyone does.
It's so common.
Exactly. Those are really classic reductions.
Okay. So let's give our listeners a chance to, try this out.
Sounds good.
Okay. So instead of saying, I'm going to call you later,
Mm-hmm.
try this. I'm going to call you later. I'm going to call you later.
Perfect.
You hear how much smoother that is.
Way smoother.
Right. And you try it now at home.
Yeah, give it a shot.
Okay. Let's do one more.
Right.
Instead of, do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
Try this. Do you want to go?
Now
Do you want to go?
See.
Wow. It's like night and day.
Right.
Okay. So we've got connected speech. We've got reductions.
Yeah.
And the dialogue also talks about intonation.
Ah, yes, intonation.
Yeah.
This one's really important.
Yeah.
It's all about the melody of your voice,
Oh, okay.
the way your voice rises and falls.
So like when you ask a question, your
Exactly.
voice goes up at the end.
Yeah, have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, actually, now that you mention it.
It's how we signal different types of sentences.
Oh, interesting.
So for yes or no questions,
Mm-hmm.
your voice usually goes up at the end.
Okay.
So listen to this. Are you ready?
Okay, are you ready?
Hear that lift at the end?
Yeah.
Now you say it. Are you ready?
Yeah, are you ready?
Perfect.
I haven't got it.
And then for statements,
Uh-huh.
your voice usually goes down at the end.
Oh, okay, so the opposite.
Exactly. So listen to this.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Hear how my voice went down at the end.
Yes.
Now you try it. I'm ready.
I'm ready.
Awesome.
Okay, so it's like the same words. Yeah. But they can have totally different meanings.
Totally.
Depending on how your voice goes up or down.
That's the power of intonation.
Wow, I'm learning so much today.
Me too.
Okay, so let's do like a little recap here.
Yeah, sounds good.
For our listeners.
Okay.
For those of you playing at home. The 3 key things we talked about today. For more natural sounding spoken English. Yes.
Connected speech.
Blending those words together.
Great. Reduction.
Shortening those common phrases.
Yep. And
The
intonation.
melody of your voice.
Yes. And mastering these will really make your spoken English sound so much more conversational.
It really will.
Like less robotic, more human.
Okay, so we're diving into something you've all been asking about, fast English conversations.
Yeah, those can be tough.
Yeah, it can feel like everyone's speaking a mile a minute, right? You're trying to keep up, and it's easy to feel overwhelmed, like you're missing out on all the good stuff.
Absolutely. And it's not just about speed either.
Right. It's about really grasping the nuances, understanding everything, not just catching a word here and there.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to tackle today. Really effective strategies to help you navigate fast English and actually improve your comprehension.
We've got some great material here with a ton of practical techniques so you can actually use these.
We're going to break it down into 3 key areas.
Yeah. So first we'll look at the power of predicting what's coming next.
Then we'll get to some really cool ways to boost your reaction speed.
And finally, we'll talk about training your ears to really understand fast speech.
It's like building those listening muscles.
Okay, let's start with prediction.
So you might think predicting is just guessing right.
Yeah, like just throwing out random words.
But it's actually a really sophisticated skill that great listeners use instinctively.
So how does it actually work?
Well, think about it. In any conversation, there are patterns. Right. Familiar phrases, things that logically follow each other.
Like if I say it's raining, don't forget you're...
You'd immediately think umbrella, right?
Exactly. It seems so simple, but it shows how our brains are always anticipating what's coming next.
And that anticipation is based on context, on the words we've already heard, and our understanding of how language works.
So it's not just random guesses, it's based on real knowledge.
Precisely, the source material here uses a great example. If you're feeling tired, you should get some.
And most of us would probably say rest or sleep.
Right, because those words fit naturally within the context of feeling tired.
So how does this help with fast English?
Well, instead of just reacting to every word you hear, you're already a step ahead.
It's like you're building a mental framework for the conversation.
Exactly, and that makes it way easier to process information when it comes at you quickly.
Makes sense. Okay, let's try another prediction exercise.
All right, hit me with it.
Okay, here we go. I'm running late, so I need to take a...
Ooh, okay, let me think. Probably a taxi or maybe a shortcut.
You got it. And again, it's all about the context being late, needing to get somewhere faster.
It's fascinating how our brains make those connections so quickly.
But isn't there a risk of over-predicting? Like, what if we get it wrong?
That's a great point. You don't want to get so caught up in predicting that you miss what's actually being said.
Right, like you could end up misunderstanding the whole thing.
So it's about finding that balance, being proactive, but also being open to new information.
So it's more of a flexible, ongoing process.
Exactly. Constantly anticipating, listening, and adapting.
Okay, that makes sense. Prediction is like the first line of defense against fast English. Shadowing.
Ah, shadowing. This is one of my favorites.
What is it exactly?
It's basically listening to a sentence and then repeating it almost simultaneously.
So like echoing the speaker.
Precisely, you're trying to match their speed, their pronunciation, even their intonation.
That sounds intense.
It can be, but it's incredibly effective.
Why is that?
Well, it forces your brain and your mouth to work together at that faster pace.
So it's like training for your listening muscles.
You got it. You're building that muscle memory for processing spoken English.
And the more you practice, the faster you become.
Absolutely. You start to close that gap between hearing and understanding.
We've got a couple of practice sentences here. Want to give it a try?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay, the first one is, let's meet at the coffee shop at 3 o'clock.
Let's meet at the coffee shop at 3 o'clock.
So you can feel how the words flow together, right?
Yeah, it's about catching that rhythm.
Okay, ready for a slightly faster one? This one is, I'll send you a message when I get there.
I'll send you a message when I get there.
Nice. You can hear how the pace picks up a bit.
It definitely takes more focus.
But that's the point, right? Pushing yourself to keep up.
Exactly. And over time, it becomes more natural.
Okay, so we've got prediction and shadowing. Any other tips for dealing with that feeling of fast English just being a blur?
Oh, definitely. Sometimes it feels like you're just hearing sounds, not words.
I know that feeling.
And it's often because our ears aren't used to the specific sounds of fast, natural English.
Especially when it comes to different accents, right?
Absolutely. Someone from Australia might sound completely different from someone from Scotland, even though they're both speaking English.
So what's the solution?
Expose yourself to as much variety as possible.
So like listening to different podcasts, watching movies with actors from different countries.
Exactly. The more you hear, the more your ears become attuned to those variations.
It's like learning a new language. You need to immerse yourself in the sounds.
And don't worry if you don't understand every single word at first.
Just focus on getting the gist, the main idea.
As you get more comfortable, you'll start picking up more and more detail.
The material also mentions a really practical tip slowing down the playback speed.
Oh, yeah, that's a great one, especially when you're starting out.
So you can actually hear the individual words and how they connect.
And as you improve, you can gradually increase the speed back to normal.
It's like training wheels for your ears.
Exactly. And again, consistency is key.
The more you practice, the better you'll get.
So, to wrap up, we've covered 3 powerful strategies for mastering fast English conversations.
First, we talked about prediction, using context to anticipate what's coming next.
Then we explored shadowing, mimicking the speaker to improve your reaction speed.
And finally, we emphasized the importance of ear training, exposing yourself to a wide range of accents and speaking styles.
These are all active techniques, things you can do to really take control of your listening experience.
So next time you're listening to something in English, try using one of these strategies.
Yeah, see what happens. Notice how it changes your comprehension.
It might feel challenging at first, but it's like anything else. The more you practice, the easier it gets.
And the more you'll enjoy those fast-paced conversations.
Exactly. Instead of feeling lost, you'll be right there with them, keeping up and understanding everything.
Now, wouldn't that be fantastic?
And the stuff you sent in this time is especially interesting. Looks like you've been digging into that Mastering Fast English Conversations podcast.
Yeah, really good choice, by the way. I mean, it's clear you're serious about getting better at understanding English, especially, when it's spoken quickly, which is something a lot of people struggle with. So,
yeah,
kudos for that.
Yeah, for sure. So, today what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep dive into the stuff you sent from that podcast and try to pull out the most useful tips and techniques that you can start using right away to improve your understanding of faster spoken English.
Exactly. You want to feel more confident, less overwhelmed, when you're in conversations. And the material you sent, it actually does a really nice job of outlining 3 key strategies for doing just that.
Exactly. It really boils down to 3 actionable steps, and that's what we're going to unpack for you today.
Sounds good.
So we're talking about the power of active listening, really, truly listening actively, then getting familiar with those tricky speech reductions, those shortcuts that native speakers use, and of course, the huge benefits of practicing with real-world English.
Yeah, and these are things that they might sound simple on the surface, but they're actually quite powerful when you start applying them consistently.
Yeah, they can really make a big difference.
So
let's jump into that first key, which is active listening.
Right.
Now, active listening might seem obvious, but it's more than just hearing words. It's about really concentrating on the conversation to understand what's important, not just, sort of passively letting the sounds wash over you.
Exactly. It's like if you think about reading something versus skimming it. When you're actively listening, you're reading for comprehension. You're digging into the meaning. You're not just, skimming the surface.
Yeah. So think about it like this, it's like the difference between hearing music playing in another room versus, putting on your headphones and really focusing on the lyrics.
That's a great analogy.
So the podcast that you shared, it actually had a really cool practical tip for making this shift from passive to active listening.
Yeah, they did. They suggested asking yourself a key question after you hear a sentence or a short part of a conversation. What is the main idea?
What is the main idea?
Yeah, exactly. And this forces you to, to engage with the material, to process it, rather than just letting it, kind of go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. And they even give some really clear examples to show how this works.
It did.
Let's run through those for you. So imagine, you hear someone say, I had a really long day at work, so I decided to treat myself to some ice cream on the way home. So, what's the core message there?
Right. You're not, getting bogged down in the details of, what exactly happened at work or what flavor of ice cream they got. The main idea, as the podcast pointed out, is he had a long day and got ice cream. You've captured the essence of what was said.
Right. So it's not about, trying to remember and understand every single word. It's about extracting that key point.
Yeah, it's about getting to the heart of the message.
They gave another example. They said she missed her flight because of traffic, but luckily she was able to book another one an hour later.
And again, the details about the traffic or, exactly when the next flight is, those are secondary. The core message is she missed her flight but got another one. You see how this helps you quickly grasp the overall situation.
Right. So for you, the listener, this is a really, useful exercise. After you hear someone speaking in English, especially if it's fast, pause for a second and ask yourself, what was the main point?
Exactly. And this is a skill that, it gets better with practice. The more you do it, the more natural it becomes.
Absolutely. And that helps you avoid feeling overwhelmed because you're not trying to process every single word, which can be, let's be honest, pretty tough when the pace is really quick.
Yeah, for sure.
And that actually leads us very nicely to the next challenge that was highlighted in the material you sent, which is recognizing speech reductions.
Right.
Now, this is where native speakers often, make understanding a bit tricky because we tend to shorten words and phrases when we speak quickly.
Yeah, it's like a shortcut, We're always looking for ways to be more efficient with our speech. And these reductions, they help us do that.
And it happens, subconsciously. We're not even really aware that we're doing it.
Right. It's just how we speak naturally.
The podcast you shared, it gave some really common examples of this in action.
Yeah, I did.
And, one that they pointed out was how, what do you want? Often becomes what do you want?
What do you want?
Right. So, several words have kind of merged together and some sounds have completely disappeared.
That's almost like a new word has been created.
And another really common one that they mentioned was, I am going to go, becoming the much snappier I'm going to go.
I'm going to go.
Yeah. And these might seem like small changes, but they can make a big difference when you're trying to follow a fast conversation.
Yeah, because your brain is trying to process these sounds. And if it's not familiar with these reductions, it can kind of, throw you off.
And the good news is these reductions often follow fairly predictable patterns. So, once you start to recognize those patterns, it becomes much easier to understand what's being said.
Absolutely.
The podcast gave some, practice examples for listeners to think about. So let's try those.
Okay.
If you hear someone say, give me a sec.
Give me a sec.
What's the full version that they likely mean?
Right. So the full version is give me a second.
Give me a second.
But you can hear how give me kind of blends together into gimme, and a second gets shortened to a sec.
Right.
It's like a little puzzle,
Exactly. And here's another one from the podcast. Let me know if you need help.
Let me know if you need help.
So what's the expanded version of that?
So that would be, let me know if you need help.
Let me know if you need help.
And again, let me becomes let me, really streamlining the phrase.
Yeah, and recognizing these common contractions and blendings is really key to understanding faster speech.
Yeah, it's not about, memorizing a dictionary of every possible reduction. It's about getting familiar with the ones that pop up most often.
Right. It's like learning the, well-worn paths in a forest instead of trying to navigate through every single tree. Once you start seeing those patterns, it makes the whole process much less daunting.
Exactly. You're not trying to process every syllable as if it's a completely new word. You're starting to see the connections.
Right. And that nicely brings us to the third crucial technique that was emphasized in the material you sent,
Aren't you there?
practicing with real-world content. So this
Yeah.
is where you take those active listening skills and your growing awareness of those speech reductions, and you apply them in a more immersive way.
Right.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, if you're learning a musical instrument, you can practice scales and chords all day long, but you really start to improve when you start playing actual songs.
Yeah. That's a great analogy. And the podcast specifically mentioned some excellent sources for this type of practice.
They did. Things like movies, TV shows, podcasts.
Right. You know, things that you enjoy, things that you would naturally be watching or listening to anyway.
Exactly, because these expose you to natural, unscripted English, the way it's actually spoken in everyday situations.
Yeah. And they even laid out a really clever 3-step practice challenge for tackling this kind of content.
They did.
So the first step is simple. Just listen.
Just listen. No subtitles, no transcripts. Just let the audio wash over you.
Right. So, the first time through, don't worry about catching every word. Just get a feel for the rhythm and flow of the language, the speed, the intonation. Notice those speech reductions that we were just talking about.
Right.
Then comes the second listen, and this is where you bring in some support. The podcast suggested listening again, this time with subtitles or a transcript.
Right.
This allows you to see the written words along with what you're hearing, which can really help clarify those parts that were tricky the first time around.
Yeah, it's like having a map, It helps you navigate the language a little bit better.
Right. And it helps you connect the sounds with the written form. You can see those speech reductions, any unfamiliar vocabulary. It really helps with, building your recognition skills.
Exactly.
And then the third step takes it even further. The podcast suggested trying to repeat parts of what you hear aloud.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. This is where you actively engage with the pronunciation, try to mimic that natural flow and intonation.
So you're not just passively listening anymore. You're actively producing the language.
Right. And this repetition step, it's incredibly beneficial. Not only does it strengthen your listening comprehension, but it also helps you improve your own pronunciation and fluency.
You start to internalize those rhythms and sounds of natural English speech.
Right. So you can see how these 3 steps really build on each other. You start by getting a feel for the language, then you decode it with the help of text, and then you actively produce it yourself. It's a really well-rounded approach.
I agree. And the beauty of it is you can do this with anything you enjoy.
Yeah.
You can find a movie you love, a podcast that interests you, and just start practicing.
Right. So you're not only improving your English, but you're also enjoying yourself.
Exactly.
All right. So let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways for you today. We've really explored 3 core techniques from the material you sent. First, there's active listening, which is all about training yourself to focus on the main idea of what's being said, rather than getting hung up on every single word. Then we delved into the world of speech reductions, those common shortenings and blendings that native speakers use all the time. Things like gonna and what-I.
Right.
And finally, we looked at the value of immersing yourself in real-world English content, like movies, TV shows, podcasts, using that, clever 3-step listening approach.
Exactly. And remember, these are not just abstract ideas. These are techniques you can start using today.
Right. And it's all about consistency. The more you practice these techniques, the more natural they'll become, and the better you'll understand fast English conversation.
Exactly. You'll start to see a real difference in your comprehension.
So, as you think about everything we've discussed today, here's a question for you to ponder. Considering these techniques actively focusing on the main idea, getting familiar with those speech shortcuts, and practicing with authentic English, what specific kinds of English language content do you think would be most beneficial for you to start actively engaging with to sharpen those listening skills even further? Think about your interests, your current comfort level, and the types of English you encounter most often. That's your starting point for taking this deep dive even further on your own.
Great question.
All right, well, that's it for today's deep dive. We hope you found it useful.
Yeah, we hope you learned something new.
And as always, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Until next time.
See you then.